This is getting ridiculous. In the white corner here, we've got the one and only monoxide carbon kicking off with the king pawn. And who's his opponent? With blacks, the hunter of the king himself. It's Nan's He-Man, the man with the power. He goes with the same pawn push on move 1. It's Title Tuesday, the late tournament on the 10th of June. Magnus had just been spanked by Hans in the morning, by the way. He also did it to Hikaru, not literally of course, on the board, and this is then the climax of the evening game. Absolutely fascinating. Titled Tuesday, clock times on the left here. Magnus could go for an Italian, a Roy Lopez, but no, he plays this one here. He knows go moat, go broke, and he's trying to keep it a bit steady. So this isn't the most sharpest way to play at the top level, but fine, it's respectable enough. Niemann goes for a copycat. The arbiters absolutely love it. And after castles, he only goes and voluntarily gives up his bishop bear. Very unusual. The grandmasters love to hold on to them. What's his point? We'll look at his pawns. Magnus about to develop the bishop, maybe. So pawn h6 takes control of g5 and I5, and Magnus whispers anyone for a knight maneuver, a nerdy chess notation joke. You could castle here, but no, not Niemann style. Look at this. He just plows Gary the debt collector down the board, and it's not even necessarily about killing Magnus and eating him. No, it's about securing the dark squares. Now Magnus is so impressed, he decides to do the same plan and gives up his bishop, shattering Hans's pawns here. But both players now, watch this, the explosive c4 plan to play their bishop around the pawn structure. You know, look at the color complex, all the pawns are on, right? Then this guy can maybe maneuver, I don't know, g2, e3, f5, who knows, right? Rich game. Magnus loves these kind of battles usually, but look at this. Niemann Schliemann's heading around here. He's not afraid to play positionally himself. Magnus goes pawn c3, preparing to expand, and a seahorse is spawned, making d4 difficult because of the pressure on e4. Therefore bishop e3 prepares to leave Niemann with the old Irish pawns. That's triple pawns, right? So this one hops back here, and possibly c5 could be on the way. Big clamp, looks a bit uncomfortable, so Magnus immediately cracks on with d4 for the score, but it weakens this, and for just a moment there's a chink in the armour of that central construction. Pawns under fire, queen is pinned to it and all that, plus the rook. Best way to go is knight f3, because if d5, putting the pressure on here, like we see in the game, then you can take on e5. And if g4, trying to kick the guy back, well, sure you can go, but the pawn's under fire. Sure, it can be defended, but now you can play f4. Rah, you can take on croissant, sure, but you bring the second rook. White's doing great, got the attack going. Therefore, we did not see knight f3, best move, but knight c2 was played instead by Magnus, allowing this one, setting up the pawn cube, known as the pube in the business. Modern players love it, but the older generation not so much. Magnus gets the rook out of dodge, the bishop no longer gazing at it. We do see takes on c4, the queen goes to h5, eyeing the king. Could have come to g4, but then you run into pawn h5. So this was played, and now Gary's had enough. He's more of an older player, and he shaves that pube. He doesn't want to stare at it all day. Magnus copies here, but after all the smoke has cleared, pawn c5 from Hans Niemann is actually the black minor pieces which stand better. I mean, Magnus getting straight up outplayed here and absolutely burned on the clock. Watch this. He spends about 35 seconds on rook a d1. Niemann sets up Pope d the third. I mean, that's no longer a bishop. What a piece. And after r2 d2, Magnus loves a bit of Star Wars. You know, he covers this guy. We get rook d8. Again, Magnus burning time. Pawn f3 here. He's going for play, trying to open things up if you take, but Niemann's having none of it. He plays the outlandish, incredibly strong move. This is the top line, by the way. Knight g7. I mean, who fianchettos a knight just to kick back the queen? Apparently queen h3 best, whatever. And then picks up a pawn here. I mean, that is now a black widow spider. Love a centralized queen, especially the black one. And Niemann's 2 pawns to the good. We get takes here, and now you could take on c3 with the queen. Instead, we get castles, connecting those rooks, also a good move. Bit of a traffic jam over here, you know, all these guys, doesn't look pleasant. And after rook ed1, trying to rook roll hands, you could definitely take on c3 here, good move. But we get the way trickier pawn f5. Niemann roars like a mighty chess lion, and it's so tricky because if you take that pawn, then you've run into this tactical problem. The knight was overloaded, defending the bishop. You just chop it off, win a piece. And if instead of taking, you move the queen, well, it's what Magnus does. There are still problems. Now, queen g3, best move. Only a silicon overlord finds this, because you run into pawn f4, and this is the point. You counterattack with bishop d4. I mean, these lines are nuts, because hang on a minute, can't you just take that? Well, yes, but now the rook no longer defends the bishop here. This sort of thing, right? I guess it didn't anyway, and it was being attacked, but whatever, right? The lines are absolutely nuts. Let's stick with the game. Magnus plays queen h3, understandably, and now we get takes on e4, cementing the bishop, and Niemann is 2 juices ahead here. I mean, he's got a full-on smoothie going with the pawns. Magnus does win one back. Fine, opens the king a bit, but Niemann now whispers, do you even rook lift, bro? He knows Magnus is strong, but look at this chess. G-pawn is now covered. Magnus desperately goes for G4 to kick this guy. I mean, what exciting chess is this? So it saves itself, or no, it doesn't. Instead, we get the counter shot. Rook D6. Look at this chess. And if you move the queen back, save it, well, the rook invades, queen goes, and this is hopeless. There's just no counterplay, and you've got tactical problems. If you take, then you run into this, you've lost a rook. If you try and take here first, well, fine, but now you've lost the minor piece, this sort of thing. So it's no good trying to save the queen. What does Magnus do? Second game in a row. Gives Niemann the queen. I mean, he's getting completely outgunned here. He's down now 4 pawns on the evaluation. We get takes here. So Magnus has got 2 rooks for the queen, but look at the pressure around his king. It's ripped open, of course. There's another tactical threat. So here we see bishop takes on g5. Queen takes pawn. Knight's about to drop. Poor king, he's crying over here. Magnus goes rook g2, and it does give a glimmer of counterplay, because if bishop takes, well, you walk into bishop f6, discovered check from the rook, queen drops. Queen can't take, or you take like this. So king h7 played, knight e3, getting out of that attack there, blockading, offering the exchange, and the best way to play here, well, Niemann finds one of them, is queen d4. Pin and win, baby. Rook e1 is played to cover, and now the best way for black to go, not easy, not obvious, when you've just moved the queen, is some kind of queen move to another square, because you hit this rook. When that rook saves itself, you know where to go, c1, d1, let's say d1, well, now you can rotate the knight, and you're bringing it in. Hang on, that's not good apparently. Bishop f6, there's me mixing my lines up. In some lines, this is really, really powerful. Not here apparently, you should come back. Okay, whatever, getting too complicated, can't be bothered, but that's the general idea. But not played in the game. Instead, we see pawn c4. Looks so natural to run that past pawn, but Magnus now goes king h1. And if you carry on running this pawn here, then you can take on f5, winning an entire piece, and you're hunting down the king. So you have to do something about that. So Niemann, therefore, plays queen c3, going for the rook, but it's not the best, as you can see, because it encourages Magnus to double. And now if you try knight d4, again you're running into the bishop issues, forking pieces, threatening the rook invasion. So instead we see queen e5 is a good move, covers this one from the attack, re-centralizes, but Magnus actually has a winning move here. Look at the swing. He's now plus 3.6, can win the game. Can you find the move if I give you 10 million seconds? So the move to play is rook f2. Far from obvious. Well done if you saw that one. You're hitting this guy twice, and if takes, well, this is the attack you get going. c3, let's say, and check. king goes and rook g5, and you're threatening to set up these checkmates or win the queen, so the queen actually has to give itself up. I mean, if the queen tries to go somewhere, I didn't really check it out, let's say here, okay, the bishop helps close the mating trap, and you've got to actually give up the queen because the king can't move. Just a sample line. So let's run back. No rook f2 found. We see knight takes on f5, and bang, look at that. The butt flap falls out the bar. I mean, they're playing like absolute patzers out here, but no criticism really. Magnus is low on time. Hans still has tons of it. We see takes with the queen there. Bishop e3 dropping back, and now the way to play here is queen f3, but Niemann doesn't do it. And it simply just wins on the spot, basically. Rook's completely pinned, bishop f1's on the way, you know, supported by the queen. You can move the rook somewhere, so what? Bishop still comes, you know, dropping off. You can get mated or give up a rook. Say you try h3, obviously not queen takes, or the rook intercepts and you get countered, uno reversoed. But what to do? You can still do this, and it's just game over. All she wrote, pawns running. I mean, you're winning a bishop here, I guess, you know. Horrible. So that was the way to go, but Niemann doesn't do it. He plays queen f6, perhaps keeping an eye on bishop d4, not sure. In response, or well, also covers this square from the rook invasion. We now get rook g3 from Magnus. Okay, what was his winning move there? Rook f2, or whatever, we'll carry on with the game. And in response, bishop f1 stops the mating threat. You know, this was a mating threat, or winning the queen anyway. Well, no, mating 2. So instead, after bishop f1, we see pawn h3, giving the king some wiggle room. Bishop e2, king h2, bishop f3, rook g5. What an incredible game this is. The pawn now pushes. It's 2 squares in the delivery suite here. And Magnus finds this incredible maneuver. Rook a5. Snakes to the other side of the board.
I'm a slithery little sneaky snake. I'm so slithery and sneaky because I'm a snake.
Preparing to take with check, and this is now a level game here. So Hans should play pawn c2. We're in analysis mode, and after check, king stepping back. Apparently best here is to just make a draw. You can come round behind the pawn even, but the black queen can start checking. You can intercept queen b2 apparently, but anyway, best is to just keep giving the checks, and the king can never step up. These guys block the path, of course. So, draw would have been the result according to the engine from here. However, Hans Niemann plays queen f7, and it's a shocker, a losing move. Magnus takes here, skewering queen to
mushrooms.
Now, rumour has it, just at this moment, one of the local lifeguards wandered past Hans Niemann's window, so it can be understood why he got a bit distracted. But even so, catastrophic blunder for him. He gives up queenie for the rook, pushes the pawn, but this guy slides over, and we see resignation. Because if you support the pawn, well, it doesn't matter. You can bring the bishop back. Here's a quick sample line. Just run that a-pawn. What to do. Completely game over. And this is how the game could have possibly ended. Who knows for sure, right? But definitely a possibility. Unreal game between these two guys. I mean, the spice that Niemann, Hikaru, Magnus are now bringing is just awesome. We're at Vindaloo levels. Hope you enjoyed this game. Have a look at the video on screen from yesterday if you missed Hans playing Magnus and Hikaru. Incredible. And I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.